So I've been part of the people playing that new craze that is Manor Lords, that new medieval settlement management RTS game. And it's Manor Lords is not a typical civilization style sim game. It's not a typical RTS game. It's a wild combination of different aspects from those two very broad genres in a practice that stresses realism and the intimate nature of managing a small village or city in the medieval countryside. There is an impressive amount of detail located everywhere within the game, from time period correct architecture and technology to the clothing that the individuals do wear. While the game also looks great and sounds great, what makes it even more impressive is that this is the work of a solo developer under the name of Slavic Magic, and it is published by Hooded Horse, who does focus on mostly publishing developmental style games such as this, RTSs, and things like that. Which, in perspective, knowing that it's from a solo developer, with all of the content that is available, the input he took and the items he put in that were suggested from the community or changes who were interested in the title, even if there are some developmental points or policies that are not available and some fully not fleshed out features yet, there's only a few handful of game modes, for example, and a singular early access map. You really can't go wrong with this title. In Manor Lords, it feels nearly close to being a full game as is, and once more, all that from a single developer. Now, you're not playing as God controlling an entire civilization from the beginning of time to the end of time. You don't control an entire civilization across the broad stretches of space in a 4K RTS. You aren't even taking the place of a historical figure guiding a civilization through the advancement of history, nor do you even really take on the role of the king guiding a country in a time period. You are granted land by the king and act as a lord for him to do his bidding, thus the title Manor Lords. Which, in early access, the king's bidding only boils down to 3 options initially. Build settlements up one by one from a small village to down to a city to reach the win condition. Then you can go into kind of endless mode once you do reach that win condition in any of them. Then you do have eliminate the forces of the person who is trying to claim heirship, who has no rightful claim to it. Or you're going to rapidly build up your settlement and prepare for raids from outside forces while also trying to build up your town at the same time. So it's more heavily combat focused. That second option is kind of a combination of the two. There's a placeholder stating that more modes are on the way, as well as more maps, because there is only one currently. It's just titled Early Access Map is available, but that's fine. There's multiple settings you can play around with as well when creating a new game. It's fairly customizable, from years until you have to worry about bandits or raiders coming in, or other military forces to contend with, your starting supply quantities from nothing to normal to excessive, the starting season, which can affect how difficult it is if your supplies are going to rot outside if you're not fast enough. Then you'll choose your lord's portrait from a base view, and then you'll create your coat of arms in a fairly decent arms creation system, and you can save that for future use, and then you are off. It will take a few attempts to get used to how exactly you play Manor Lords, what resources are important, what buildings are necessary, what your ordering should be, when you need to assign villagers to what tasks to gather what materials. Your first winter will most likely be harsh. You'll burn through your food stores and your fuel stores. Your settlements will only grow as you build extra houses when you have the time. If you don't properly plan around the addition of extra livestock, mainly oxes, buildings and the transportation of logs needed for many tasks will be slower, and your village can kind of grind to a slow halt, resulting in starvation, disease, and ultimately the death of your villagers. But don't worry, you'll always be able to fight on through or, start anew with your newly gained knowledge. Even though there is a tooltip system in the game, there is really just a lot that isn't said or explained extremely thoroughly without some understanding already. The best way to learn Manor Lords is to play Manor Lords. Housing plots are best built to have extra space for expansions, which can include vegetable gardens or chicken coops for extra food, goats for hides, and a plethora of other options that you can unlock later on through developmental points, which, will unlock better access to goods to trade away. However, you can also just build your houses as just small, normal house-sized plots, so you do need to plan accordingly when setting up your city's infrastructure. You'll need lumber camps to chop down trees for timber to build, then sawmills to make planks for other construction and crafting, buildings to make firewood for fuel, charcoal pits to turn that firewood into better fuel to be used by villagers to stay warm, or what other functions they need, and fuel for other buildings such as smithies or ovens or kilns for the ores and clay you mine. You'll start to see a trend that for every new raw resource you can gather, you'll be able to process it then into perhaps a better item that can be sold or used further down the line. What you do with all this? Well, you trade it or make items to arm your army with, or trade it away to get wealth to buy arms for your army. You'll need to craft individual items for your militias, making spears, shields, bows, armor, whatever they might need, you'll need to be able to make or purchase. Then you'll enlist your male villagers into companies, which in turn has lasting effects on your village as a whole. When half your population is enlisted, they are no longer working or producing. Production of food and timber and raw resources and goods slows down by 50%, and war is now not only controlling your forces in battle, such as pushing forward, holding their ground, protecting themselves from ranged fire, or retreating to live another day and fight another day, but some of those villagers will not be coming back. Your village's production will be affected for a while until new families move in or families grow and replace those fallen village members, because each building will have individual families and houses assigned to be the artisans and crafters for those different facilities. So a house will hold all of the people working at a lumber mill, or 4 houses, however many buildings. The farmhouse, which you need for your farms to be surrounded by, which will store raw resources until they can be manufactured. Well, your normal houses where your villagers live, they will be assigned there and go be farmers, or they'll go work in the charcoal pits, or they'll go be hunters, they'll go forage berries, they'll go work in the mines, they'll go be smiths. It's all necessary in managing where people are working and when they are working, depending upon the time of year and resources available. Managing that will be very important in your success in the long run. However, to even be able to craft armaments, hard trade goods, have deep mines for when resources are depleted, but you can continue mining them from those nodes that were previously there. Ways to constantly hunt for animals via traps when you are waiting for the animals' populations to regrow, or even just growing apple orchards in extra houses plots just for more food. You'll have to spend your developmental points as well as your region's wealth. You'll have a few requirements to meet to earn your development points, such as the first one just being upgrading 2 homes, or what they are known as burgage plots, to making sure that they have access to local marketplaces with varying goods for the people to buy, and water to other amenities for higher levels such as prestigious churches with a varied selections of good at said markets or standing armies in a high enough level manner. Each time you upgrade your settlement, you'll earn a developmental point. Development points are extremely limited. Currently, you can only earn 5 per settlement, and they apply only to that settlement's region. So, planning ahead and deciding how you're going to focus your settlement in a direction that will most benefit you. While your initial settlement might need to dabble a little here or there to survive until you can start expanding, as you get more, you'll realize this area will be great for mining and armament crafting. There is an iron ore deposit that you can put a deep mine on to perpetually and infinitely get iron ore from and craft armaments. You'll want to focus down that path. This one has a lot of fertile ground. You'll focus on farming there with your farm upgrades. Some might just not have a lot of great things. You'll focus it on being a little bit of here or there to survive, and then you'll focus on trade. Then you can have inter-trading points between your settlements and regions. And this will allow your different regions and villages to share supplies amongst one another to make sure that they can survive through the winter when those kind of production blind spots are now covered. However, this is kind of where we get to how it shows the title is in early access. The development tree, and furthermore the policy tree, to a larger extent, are rather bare bone right now. Only a handful of developments, very basic ones, are available to select. This can also mean that further down the line, as Manor Lords is updated in the future, more points can become available per settlement to use as well, or perhaps even bought, upgraded further. Policies currently, there are 2 policies. One is where you can hunt more food from animals, but your crops will produce 50% less food. It's just not very good to have, I don't think at least. Or there's one where your villagers will skip every 5th meal, which will drop your approval rating. Which, speaking of approval rating, there's other ratings going on here behind the scenes. You have your approval rating, how happy your villagers are to live under you. This can be affected by taxes, the quality of goods they have access to, the amount of goods they have access to. Is their disease running rampant? Can they eat meals that are more than just bread and meat? Do they have vegetables? Do they have goods to choose from? Do they have multiple options for clothing that they can purchase at the marketplace? And taxes. Villagers are not going to be happy to pay taxes. And you can set taxes on a lot of stuff. A land tax per villager, based on a percentage. You can tax food donated to the church to increase your food stores, and more. There's also a mercenary tax option where in times of war, a tax will be collected, and you can put that forward towards hiring mercenary groups rather than only having to rely on your villagers. However, when it is not a time of war, the approval rating goes down even more, and you take a larger hit for that tax being implemented when there's no mercenaries needing to be hired. This is all done when you build your tax office at your manor and your personal castle, which does also provide you with a small retinue party you can use as a militia in time of war or defense if also needed. So, Manor Lords. While there are definitely some rough and unbalanced portions, such as trade feeling extremely valuable and strong right now, just mining all that clay, make a deep mine, turn it into roof tiles and trade it off. There is a ton of potential lined up here within this title. In its current state, it's still an absolute blast to play. It was an absolute blast to learn. It's just a much more intimate experience from any sort of development or sim that I've played before. It's also extremely good looking, down to each detail. There's even an experimental mode where you can spawn in as a 3D avatar. There's only one model currently, and it looks like it was modeled after one of the portraits, but this allows you to walk around your town amongst the different villagers. You can see the details put into the buildings. You can see the details on the ground and the trees. You can also walk through your farm fields. You can also walk through the fields of battle. So you can watch your army fight an enemy army or fight bandits if you so choose. You're not limited to just spawning in your town. You can do this anywhere. If your army is off fighting in a different region to lay claim to it, you can just spawn there and walk around the battle if you so choose. And I mean, when you're doing this kind of this little wandering mode, there are some bugs. It does state it's an experimental feature, and some of the stuff that can happen is kind of wonky, but it doesn't really have any lasting effects, so that's okay. Manor Lords was the most wishlisted game for a reason, it seems, and it does also hold the title for now having the best launch as a simulation or settlement development game on Steam as well, and that is well deserved, even being only an early access title. The feature does look great for what Slavic Magic has in store for Manor Lords, and I do hope that this early access success that he is having can help spur on the solo developer and acquire more help if need be. Either way, it does seem like he's being rewarded for his hard work and effort, as well as his openness with the community interested in the game and in taking ideas and implementing the ones that did make sense for the title. Manor Lords is currently available in Steam Early Access for $29.99, which does also include a 25% discount that does run through May 10th. So if you're sitting on the fence, you have until May 10th to decide if you want to take advantage of that 25% discount. At that point, it will jump up to $39.99. If you want to play it on a different platform and just spend more money, it is also available in the game preview program on the Xbox app on PC. It is not on the Xbox console, though it does seem like a game that would function on a console. There's not a ton of submenus to go through, and if Paradox Interactive games can be made to work on a console, there's no reason Manor Lords can't. The only reason it's not on a console, I fully believe, is that it is the work of a solo developer, a singular person. But it is available for $39.99 via the Xbox PC app. No discount there, though it is also available to play at no extra cost if you do have a PC Games Pass or an Ultimate Games Pass subscription. So there are a few ways to try it out if you just are interested and you happen to have one of those Game Pass subscriptions, or you can just dive in and buy it. However, if you are a fan of simulation games or RTS games or developmental style games, city developmental games, you'd really be a fool to not give Manor Lords a try. I really look forward to playing it a bunch more, understanding it a bunch more, optimizing everything a bunch more, finally trying to jump into the hardest mode where you're constantly beset by raiders, because it is kind of daunting to have to arm your villagers and watch them go out and die to raiders, then have to rebuild your town up, or watch your town get burned down to a crisp because the illegitimate heir to land decides, I'm going to come raid this town while he's off fighting raiders. That's fun, let me tell you. Anyways, the game is really fun. I absolutely recommend it if you're a fan of RTS or simulation games or developmental style games. It's very relaxed. It's very laid back. It's rather slow. You can speed up the game speed, though, to kind of progress through stuff a little bit faster if you'd so like. But I highly, highly, highly recommend Manor Lords. Give it a try.